Arab armies have been generally ineffective in the modern era. Why this unimpressive record? Among the most well-known arguments regarding Arab military ineffectiveness is the claim that their armies have been plagued by poor unit cohesion, or the willingness of small military formations, platoons, companies, battalions, to stick together and fight as a team in the stress of combat. Since the Second World War, a number of American authors have argued that an army's unit cohesion is probably the single most important element of its overall effectiveness. Yet time and again, Arab militaries have fragmented upon contact. We saw this in 1962 during the Egypt-Yemeni War, when Egyptian soldiers were essentially dropped in the middle of the desert without any maps or clear objectives. This is known as Egypt's Vietnam. It also happened at least 4 times to the Iraqi army. First during Saddam's invasion of Iran, Operation Desert Storm, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and most recently its collapse against ISIS. It's hard to keep units with poor morale together. As a consequence, these militaries often enforce discipline through fear. The enlisted men often feel they're fighting for a despotic regime who started these conflicts with goals that were less compelling to the troops. This problem results from 2 main factors. First, the well-known lack of trust among Arabs for anyone outside their own division. Middle Eastern rulers routinely rely on balance of power techniques to maintain their authority. They use competing organizations, duplicate agencies, and coercive structures that are dependent on the ruler's whim. This makes military coordination difficult, if not impossible, and keeps the leadership apprehensive of each other and off balance. Arab leaders look at combined exercises very cautiously. For all Arab armies are a double-edged sword. One edge points to an outside enemy, and the other edge points to themselves. No Arab ruler will allow combined operations or training to become routine, because they fear being overthrown by their own military. Arab armies have also been disappointed by the performance of the generals who lead them. This argument is usually heard in the wake of Middle Eastern wars, especially from the Arabs themselves. They say, our troops fought well, but we were betrayed by the incompetence of our senior leaders. For example, after the 6-Day War, the Egyptians blamed Field Marshal Amir for the catastrophe. His soldiers allegedly abandoned their men and left them to their fate as soon as the Israelis attacked, demoralizing the soldiers and leading to a rout of the entire army. The root problem is that command posts are given to the most loyal, not the most qualified, so we'll often see high-ranking officers without any experience or honor. This played a huge role in the Iraqi army dissolving in front of ISIS. The first people to retreat were the commanders themselves. This lack of care for the soldiers' safety is prevalent throughout the region. As any military veteran knows, the spirit of a unit is set at the top. Or, as the old saying goes, units do those things well that their boss cares about. When the top political leadership displays a complete lack of concern for the welfare of its soldiers, such attitudes seep through the ranks. Leadership may be the greatest weakness of Arab training systems. Arab junior officers are unable to conduct modern maneuver warfare. Competent tactical leadership is crucial to contemporary military operations. On land, combat is dominated by infantry, artillery, tanks, and other armored vehicles, often engaging in fluid battles of maneuver. In the air, combat is dominated by nimble fighter and attack aircraft, whose pilots likewise prevail in chaotic and quickly changing engagements. The fluidity of these battles places a tremendous burden on tactical leadership. To succeed on the modern battlefield, a military must be able to decentralize command and have the kind of leaders at the scene with the right demeanor to seize fleeting opportunities to defeat the enemy. Modern combat favors those who are aggressive and have the initiative to take immediate, independent action, who are innovative and are able to find creative solutions on the battlefield, and who understand how their own mission fits into the larger battle so they can improvise solutions. Success on the battlefield also requires tactical integration of the various combat arms. Infantry, armor, aircraft, engineers must all work together as a team. Normally, it's the army that can best coordinate these actions that prevails, because the whole modern military working as a team is much more powerful. Many Israeli military officers and Western military historians have cited problems in these areas as the greatest failings of Arab armed forces. Israeli field commanders after the 6-Day War cite that Arab junior officers are unable to function in the manner required of tactical leaders. The Israelis have consciously structured their own military doctrine to take advantage of these perceived weaknesses. The problem is that in many Arab regimes, initiative and ambition are discouraged, and in some cases punished. The politicized nature of Arab militaries means that political factors weigh heavily and frequently override military considerations. Officers with initiative and a preference for action pose a threat to the regime. Another problem is poor gathering and management of information. Knowing more than your enemy is often a decisive advantage on the battlefield, and failing to get the right information to those who most need it is often crippling. Westerners and even senior Arab military officers have acknowledged that their armed forces have tremendous difficulty handling information. Arab soldiers and officers don't pass information along the chain of command, and little information flows from top levels down to the field. Arabs hold on to information especially tight. U.S. trainers have been surprised by the fact that information given to key personnel does not get passed down the ranks. In the United States, what you know is only as valuable as to the extent that it could be taught and applied. It's the opposite in the Arab world. When an officer learns a complex task, he knows that he is more valuable so long as he is the only one who knows it. Once that information is shared, his power dissipates. Each commander wants to be the only source of information, and is thus reluctant to share, even if it compromises the operation. In some ways, this is done by design. Arab regimes often don't trust their own militaries. That's because many Arab dictators themselves gain power by means of a military coup. Consequently, communication is restricted, and even the smallest decisions must be approved by the government. Machines are an integral part of modern warfare. The weapons of modern armed forces, even the simplest ones such as pistols and rifles, are all mechanical devices. Middle Eastern states do have an arsenal of these machines, including sophisticated aircraft and top-of-the-line tanks. But a charge often given to Arab armed forces is that they're unable to fully exploit the weapons they do have. On some occasions, they have complained that their equipment was inferior to their opponents, or obsolete. However, the Arabs have waged a number of wars in which their equipment was equal or even superior to their foes. The Chadian-Libyan conflict is a perfect example of this. Libyan forces deployed far more advanced weaponry against their Chadian opponents, but were crushed nonetheless. Similarly, against Iran in the 1980s, Iraqi forces enjoyed a heavy advantage in the firepower they could bring to the front. But despite this advantage, Iraq's invasion of southwestern Iran hardly dented the discouraged and demoralized Iranian army. Nor did Baghdad conquer anything of military or economic value in the 3 months of largely unimpeded offensives. Arab soldiers and officers are rarely able to employ their equipment to its full capacity. Arab personnel are not technically trained enough to handle their weapons in a way intended by the manufacturer. And as weaponry becomes more advanced, the more they need to rely on outside training and guidance. Thus, Arab armies have fallen victim to the very weapons they've been purchasing. Training tends to be unimaginative, cut and dry, and not challenging, because the educational system is rooted in rote memorization. Officers have a phenomenal ability at remembering vast amounts of knowledge. The emphasis on memorization has a price. Thinking outside the box is not encouraged. Doing so in public can damage a career.